This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
Look up in the sky at the birds, the planes.
Yo, what's up, James Cole?
What's up, Tyler?
You still doing okay after last week? I mean, it's been tough. Like, you know.
You know what? I'm totally fuzzy. Like you say last week, it could have been yesterday, it could have been a month ago.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, we over here trying to survive, you know what I'm saying? Like not having Superman and Lois anymore. Like what we do? You know? So
yeah, I feel that.
It's
we rewatch Superman and Lois. That's what we do.
Yeah. Let me just start over.
Well, I mean, so it was the Skeleton Crew started. So I haven't watched episode 3 of that, but I watched the first 2 episodes of that when that dropped last week, and then of course Creature Commandos.
Yes. So let's just kick that off.
2 episodes.
So let's just kick that off right now. Just quick thoughts, overviews. You don't have to. We won't go, super into everything right now, but just thoughts on, Creature Commandos right now. How are you feeling with 2 episodes in?
2 episodes in. So it is 1,000,000% James Gunn. Like, I mean, he's, and it's not really a spoiler to say that he's got an animation of himself in the credits.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
I mean, just the character interactions, you know what I mean? It's like you can tell. I definitely think he's gotten better as a writer, from a lot of his, all of his stuff over the years. We've seen and watched a bunch of it, and he's done a lot of comic book stuff in the last decade. So
yeah, he has.
But the talent on the show, all the voices being the characters, they're doing great. It's absolutely an adult show, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. It's really good. I really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to episode 3. There's a lot of good characters, but standout, just the little bit he's in there, has been G.I. Robot.
All right. I see what you're saying. I like G.I. Robot. So what threw me off about G.I. Robot, was he reminds me so much of what Jeff Johns had recently just done with Junkyard Joe that I thought they were the same character. So I was extremely confused at first because I thought G.I. Robot and Junkyard Joe were the same character, but they're not.
Interesting.
So yeah, you're telling me. But I am talking Creatures Commandos with Brian over on a special Gravely Amusing. So for all of our listeners, they'll be able to check out Gravely Amusing, and you'll hear me chatting Creature Commandos with him the first 2, maybe 3 episodes.
Yeah. The lineup is pretty awesome. The Bride of Frankenstein, Dr. Phosphorus, Nina or Mina. Nina or Nina?
Nina with an N.
Nina. Yeah, Nina Mazursky. That's what it was. That's where I'm getting the M from.
You're like neat. What?
Right.
Nickelodeon? What?
Yeah. It's Weasel is absolutely hilarious. He's like a scared dog, like a scared animal. But I've really enjoyed it, and I like Alan Tudyk's Dr. Phosphorus. I mean, without getting in too much into spoilers. What about you?
I mean, I like all the characters pretty much. I mean, actually, my favorite character, to be honest with you, is probably the bride right now.
Yeah. I mean, if we give the alert, the spoiler alert before talking about it, we can talk about spoilers. We've watched the 2 episodes.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. James wants to talk. So yeah, what do you want to say, James?
I mean, yeah, I really like the bride. I think that's mainly because she's kind of front and center most of the second episode entirely. But she has a strong presence in the first episode. But them up against Cersei.
Yeah, and I think that's neat. And they say Cersei weird too.
Yeah, Circe.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what it was. I was like, it's something weird. But I'm, okay, so we can go down this rabbit hole real quick. We're in spoiler territory, okay? James Gunn basically is backdooring. Can we just all agree and say that the Suicide Squad is canon to the DC universe? And all of Peacemaker season 1 is, except for the Justice League cameo.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if James Gunn goes in and tweaks something and takes out like the Justice League cameo, or like makes it a little darker so you can't see them, and then takes out the Momoa and Ezra Miller part. And this, one day will be so
I mean, like I said in our group chat, I was like, you know what? He could just be like, that's Peacemaker telling a story. Like, he saved the day, and then he got out, he made it out, or whatever he was carrying him out, and they just walked away. But no, the story he tells people is, I saved the world before the Justice League.
yeah, but like I'm saying, just tweak it, make it darker in the distance, or and then you don't show Momoa and Miller.
Right.
And
Yeah. I mean, at least certain events. How many stories have you seen about the multiverse where some Earths are nearly identical?
Right.
It's just small things that changed.
And that's where we're at. It's just we have to, because there's been no, other than Superman as a major character, there's been no other major recast yet.
Yeah.
So just saying.
I mean, before we got here though, we have taken a strong leap into the comic books side of the DC universe, like Batman doing all the things he did in the Flash, of course, the Speed Force, the multiverse, Aquaman and Atlantis, the New Gods. I mean, Shazam, Magic.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of very comic book things that the DCEU has explored,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's where James Gunn wants to take the DC universe, like really
Mm-hmm.
really show what these characters and what a comic book universe is really really like, how colorful and science, like super science fiction it can be.
Yep.
Or super fantasy, whatever it may be.
It's true. It is true. But yeah, the Creature Commandos is definitely like there's so many reference points. It just straight up is out of what do you call it?
We get the Suicide Squad, Project Starfish, Rick Flag is dead. Rick Flag Jr. is dead. Got Rick Flag Sr.
We have the call out about her outing her mom.
Yep.
So
From the end of Peacemaker.
So yeah. So that happened.
Right. I mean, but you take it to akin of like comic book writers when they're writing stories and they jump from character book to a different character book to a team book or whatever. When a writer writes things and they create new characters, just say more recently like Tom Taylor, since he kind of started writing in the mainline continuity of the DC universe, some characters he's created from back to Earth, even back to Earth 2, but some of his Suicide Squad characters and things like that, they've all moved forward in his writing.
Oh
you
yeah.
know? So like it's when you write things and you start building, you know what I mean? You take what you've done and move it forward, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
the way that the second episode ended, I'm really like anxious to see episode 3 with the bride and Nina and Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we got the team coming in, but yeah, like that's interesting because that montage scene of Frankenstein chasing the bride and getting his ass beat for like
Overtime.
150 years. Yeah.
It's pretty James Cole epic. That's what we call it around here.
It's called persistence.
never give up, says James Cole.
Never give up, never surrender. But no means no.
Yes.
No means no.
Alrighty. So other than that, let's see here. Hold on. I am looking for make sure I got all my news here correct.
So I know you watched the trailer at the end of the first episode, kind of like what to expect. Did you watch episode 2 all the way through? Because they have a next on trailer at the end of that. Okay, so yeah, it's like going to be like GI Robot's story. Looks like it's more focused on that character.
My question is, do we want to talk about the spoiler we got in the trailer of our first real look at David Cornsweat's Superman?
Yeah, in the upcoming where David Cornsweat's Superman is basically crucified.
Yep. So we can all, like I said, we can all agree.
Like Starfire over here and Peacemaker was on the ground.
Yep. So we can all agree that we're pretty sure that it was this Superman, okay, that what's his face shot with a kryptonite bullet.
Yeah, Bloodsport.
Yes.
Right.
So
that's cool.
You know, like we can all agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, the more connective tissue. I mean, sometimes you'd like to see things like that, but when you jump into a universe where it basically all exists, which is like kind of what he's talked about, is, you know, all these things kind of just exist. They're not origin stories, you know, for the most part. So that'll be interesting for fans. And I mean, of course, they're not going to tell Batman and Superman origin stories. Everybody knows those.
Right. But I'm just saying, like we.
But look, the soft intro to the DC universe, and we've got like a cataclysmic future and an apocalyptic future.
This is one of those things where I'm like, I hope this is just something like it's like a threat that she's saying, like, I'm gonna do this, blah blah blah. You can't stop me, because I really don't want.
But look,
this.
it's not an evil Superman, Tyler.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I don't want like to be starting up again, like with some sort of like peril again. So I don't know.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it all develops, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If things start to come together over the next few years. So, I mean, there was a report, well, not a report, he posted that another project has been greenlit, but they can't say which one it is. So, you know, I mean, we've got Creature Commandos that came out, Peacemaker season 2 that's wrapped, Superman that's wrapped, Supergirl that's going to be shooting. Don't know, not sure what's actually in production after that. Maybe it's this next thing that's been greenlit.
Yeah, I mean, I just my thing is right now is what do you call it? Lanterns, and so that's
oh yeah, Lanterns. Yeah, that'll be shooting.
So I'm kind of just in the camp of, okay, we got that. Awesome.
That's a lot of projects that are in like active development.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, you know.
Yep.
Hopefully making it past stages that they didn't make it past in previous regimes.
Well, I kind of feel that they will, because these are ones that Gunn himself is greenlighting, and he himself is
well, I mean, that's the thing about him being the president, being able to say, being one of the co-presidents, being able to say, you know, what he actually is getting off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard a lot of things over the years that never took off.
Yeah, so if we sound unenthused, people, it's because we've been down this road. We've been here before, guys. How many times?
Optimistic and hopeful of the future, though.
Oh yeah, we're totally optimistic and hopeful, but it's just like, you announce something awesome, just tell me when it's ready.
Right. Well, you know, the positive thing we've always tried to go with is like they've created DC Studios, kind of like its own department, its own tier.
Yep.
Controlling their products more than shareholders, let's say.
So, all right, let's move on. Harley Quinn. We got our trailer as of today for the final season, season 5, and it'll be in January, right? Yes,
16th.
Yeah. So basically, it drops right after the next day or the next week after Creature Commandos ends. So Creatures Commandos end, and then the next week is when Harley drops.
Well, that's an epic handful of months then. We've had the Penguin, Creature Commandos, and season 5 of Harley Quinn.
I mean, you got to, right? I mean, it reminds me back when, what do you call it? Remember we had the
Universe was releasing their shows.
Yeah, as soon as one show would end, the next show would start, and you just had the continuation, and then that only lasted a little bit. But so, what looks to be the big fun point of the new season of Harley Quinn, James?
Going to Metropolis.
Yeah, she's going to Metropolis, leaving Gotham, and we're going to see Superman and Lois because we see them in the trailer.
We do see them in the trailer. I did like seeing Lois. What they showed of her was pretty cool.
It's pretty fun.
I had a good time. Yeah. But yeah, going to Metropolis, Poison Ivy. I mean, having all the people come over. I love Kaylee Cuoco as Harley Quinn, and she works perfectly in a cartoon setting.
Yeah, she does.
I'd love to see her live action, but I think her cartoon is perfect. It can be completely ridiculous and over the top.
Yeah. But good. Okay. All right. Keep moving on. So we got some. Wait. First, let's do this. No, let's do this.
The villain of the villain of the trailer. Who's the villain of the trailer?
Brainiac.
Bane. I will not be destroyed by AI.
Which is hilarious. Oh
man.
I just love Bane on that show, period.
He is my favorite. And that's why he was the primary character of the Valentine's Day special.
Yeah, it made the most sense. So we have some Superman merch for the upcoming film, kind of mugs and pins that were at a convention. Here's some more looks at the mugs. They look okay. I'm not gonna lie, like they look cool, but not like, oh my god, I must have one mugs. But they look cool.
I want one.
Yeah, I mean, I want one, but I'm not like beating the crap out of somebody for one right now. Then we have this where it's a shirt, but it's like a callback to Superman 78 with the new logo.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool, but I wouldn't wear it. So it
looks like a comfortable gym shirt to me.
Yeah. These are new merchandise pieces that are on sale on DC's website. I wouldn't mind having the hoodie with the Superman breaking the chain, just because that's the new DC logo, which I will say was pretty awesome to see on my TV when Creature Commandos started.
That was sick. I got all giddy. I was like, "Oh man, that's sweet."
And then this was there at that convention too, just Superman DC Studios 2025. It's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, what kind of Superman fans would we be if we were not excited for the new Superman movie to come out?
I mean,
you're not really a character of the fan if you're not, or you're not really a fan of the character if you're.
Just be like I do when I say stuff like that. I'd be like Willy Wonka, like, wait, stop, reverse.
Yep.
All right, and then let's see. We got this image, which was an unused steel suit, I guess, at some point, and I'm just kind of like, well, dang, when, where? Give me more details, because as I noticed, like the cape is legit here, and it has more of the comic accurate steel symbol compared to in that final shot where, if you look, the cape's attached differently, and it's just regular Superman based symbol on his armor.
Yeah, that one looks really good.
Because this is like an actual.
Love to see that in action in the show.
Because this is an actual costume, compared to, I bet that final shot was just like a shot with digital with, added elements, compared, like this would have been him walking around in it. And I had hoped that we would have seen that more in the show. And then the last bit of news I have is this. Have you seen this? The new DC Studio Showcase official podcast from Max?
Yeah, I actually listened to the first episode on the Creature Commandos, episodes 1 and 2.
So this will be something interesting. I did listen to the official podcast when they were doing the Penguin, and then that podcast basically turned into this podcast feed.
Well, if you go to, so I followed it on Spotify, And if you go to it and you go backwards in the episode list, it just goes right back to the Penguin, goes right back to Peacemaker. The two podcasts that were about each show. They're right there on the feed.
I never did the Peacemaker one. I probably should. It'd be fun to just go back and listen to. So
I've watched some of the show recently.
All right.
A couple episodes here and there.
I rewatched Peacemaker season 1 not long ago. I'll probably rewatch it again next July or something. Get ready for season 2. All right, let's talk. I have a question for you first. Do we need clean reboots? We've talked about this in comics as we did our New 52, as we went into the Rebirth. We talked about this with the upcoming Superman film, how important it is for reboots. You know, in a way, Superman and Lois was a reboot because it wasn't exactly the spin-off that everyone thought it was, because it was set on a different Earth. And it gave it.
They didn't even commit to, I think, until the end of season 2.
What? It was a different Earth?
Yeah.
I mean, they made that apparent at the end of season 1.
Was it season? Because they had cameos, like Diggle showed up.
It was just Diggle, and it was a different Diggle. Because you go back and you look at, like, you can find the script for the pilot, and it addresses like crisis stuff, and it addresses like different things. But then when they were shooting in, because of COVID and everything, they shifted to making it just set on a new Earth and was able to retool the show.
That's just where I was saying it was. I wasn't sure how long it was. I knew it wasn't past season 3. Just I wasn't sure where it was that they finally had determined. People were talking about if it was, but they finally determined
it was season 1.
Was.
Yeah, I mean they make it apparent by the end of season 1 that they're on a different Earth.
Okay.
Because that's why there was no other cameos. There's Superman's the only superhero on the planet.
Yeah, I know. We eventually we had got there. I just couldn't remember what episode it was that they eventually got there.
But yeah, that's just something to think about. I want every listener to kind of think about the importance of reboots. If you like them, if you don't, if you prefer to just these adjustments. And I kind of set that up because we are going into this time where we are getting new stuff. And I think in comics, we get all these adjustments, but it's like, would we like to get a reboot? And I don't know, just something to think about. But let's talk about Superboy. We're back with Superboy.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it's us versus general audience, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The general audience will literally just question it because it's DC, it's comic book. If they even know the difference between the Marvel and DC.
Yeah, my favorite DC character is Spider-Man, right? That's a character, right?
Right. And they only know the movies and things like that. Whereas us, we can kind of make that adjustment and separate it in our mind, and we know the timeline and things like that. But audience.
Watching Brian argue with people who are only comic knowledge is MCU only and not the comic books is hilarious.
I bet he has a good time.
I have a good time.
Oh, I'm sure.
But we are back. Season 1 of Superboy. We did episode 10, Troubled Waters, which ironically aired December 10th, 1988. A businessman wants to buy all the farms in Smallville during an agricultural depression. Mr. Kent wants to find out why. Kenderson, the businessman, has something to hide and tries to kill Mr. Kent, but is unsuccessful. James. We're back in Smallville. I mean, this is our first time in Smallville, and this is our first time meeting Mr. and Mrs. Kent in the Superboy universe.
Absolutely, yeah.
We got Pa, I think, who is the forgotten Jonathan Kent, and he's a pretty good one, I will say.
He throws some hands too.
Yeah, he does.
He gets down and dirty, just like John Schneider.
I do have to laugh in this at some of the stuff, like when the tractor crashes, like it's so like just him kind of like driving crooked and jumps off and like, but so we meet a character named Ellen who calls Clark and tells him his dad's in the hospital, and Clark's in his dorm with slip-on shoes and white socks, and he says, I'll get the first plane to Smallville and then catch the 1 p.m. bus, or I'll get from the first plane to the 1 p.m. bus to Smallville. And we see the plane. And then it's later said that's the same day as the crash. I'm like, where is Smallville? Like in relation, like the times table, this episode doesn't match up because he says he's going to go to the state early that morning, but he's up early in the morning on his tractor when he crashes instead of going to the state agriculture department. I'm like,
They do say that he does say that, make sure he doesn't make it to it. He's like, I got to get them chores in before I can make it to state.
I thought it was later that day that he had his crash, but they make it seem like it's the same day as it's confusing. I think this episode had some issues as far as directing and writing. I couldn't find any trivia on it because Clark gets off the bus and he greets Ellen. I don't know about you, but I don't greet my friends this way.
Yeah. I said Clark gets him some, like,
he gets off the bus and he kisses her, and she's okay. So Clark's in college. Let's say he's 18, 19. Okay. Maybe even 20. Okay.
Oh, that might be his first year at college. 18.
I thought it was. So I would say 18. This woman is a doctor. She's got to be at least a good,
8 years on him
or something, which is fine. But it's just he gets off the bus and like he kisses her, man. Like he kisses her.
Yeah, he does.
And he's wearing his Smallville sweater, which was neat because the color scheme is more like the Smallville color scheme that we got in Superman and Lois. And then he gets harassed and his glasses get broken. He tries not to destroy the thugs, which I liked. And
just destroys that bumper.
Yeah. And then he gets out
with his hand.
Yeah, he gets to the farm and like Jonathan tells him about everything. He's like, well, I'll go check Pop and practice with my X-ray vision. We get the slowest shirt rip of all time.
Yeah.
He literally is like unbuttoning each button. And then
it's before they gave him the breakaway.
Yeah. We see what do you call it?
It's the only shirt I wore here. I can't rip this one. Mom, can you sew my buttons back on? I think Superman would have to learn how to sew on his own buttons.
He just buys Velcro. I lost my train of
Clark
thought.
could pull off Velcro.
Yeah, he could. We see him get new glasses, and then there's no mineral deposits, and Clark goes to find out what he can. And this is probably my favorite part where they try to jump Clark, and he's just pissed. And the guy comes at him, and he like lightly like pushes the guy, and he goes flying through the window. And obviously, you can tell it's the guy running and jumping himself through the breakaway window. And then the guy takes a big 2x4, and he just puts his arm up, and it breaks over him. And he's like, "Been pumping iron." And
hits him with the door. Hits him with the door and sends him through the same window.
Oh my gosh. And then so Pa makes a deal about getting all their loans extended, and they're going to go to the silo, and they're there pumping gas because they're going to set the silo on fire. And Pa like gets in a fist fight, gets knocked out. Then Ellen gets like a major backhand and just falls down. And and then we see Ma like, Clark, they should have been back an hour ago. And he goes flying like flying, like high distance. I'm like, how far away is this silo? Because the speed that he's flying, the height, he wouldn't be past Smallville. He'd be in the next county or town, like, or state. But my favorite, okay, is the final when Lana calls to check up on his dad, and she's a little jealous, and he's like, Lana, yeah, Ellen's here. She's just a gorgeous, good friend, just like you, Lana. And
Like,
Ellen
yeah.
smiles. And I'm like, this guy already got 2 major kisses on Ellen in this. I'm like, is this Clark like macking, like playing chicks? Because Lana says, is
I'd say,
Ellen still beautiful?
Right.
And
It
everything.
was.
And
Is
she's
it this
so
Clark that, or is it this season that Superman kisses Lana as well,
well, there was that like them in the
or
pool
Clark
kind of
kissed
thing.
Lana?
There was them in there was them in the pool. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like this Clark has more coolness to him. Like, I could see this Clark like aging to be Dean Cain. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like they're in the same vein right here.
Yeah.
And I feel like this episode, though, like maybe they wrote it. I told Jania because we were watching it, and she like was laughing at some over my shoulder. I'm like, I feel like maybe they shot some stuff and then like changed the writing or forgot. And then when they were editing, they realized, oh snap, we never got a retake of this. Well, we'll just have to use the scene of Clark making out with her. But that doesn't make sense in the story. It's okay. No one will watch this in 10 years and be studying it and talking about it on the internet.
Of course. What's the internet?
Yeah, but just a gorgeous, good friend, Lana, just like you. It's almost a creeper line. Like, it's like he goes back and Lana welcomes him back to Schuster and he just starts making out with her. Like,
I was
hey,
gonna
Lana.
say, yeah, Clark just kisses his friends, man.
So I actually kind of like this episode just because I like seeing Clark a little flustered, and I liked seeing Ma and Pa.
Yeah.
Even though there's no other people.
Yeah,
like,
Ma said, Jonathan. I was like, oh yeah. Like, yep, that's Ma Kent.
Yeah, she's just yelling Jonathan. Jonathan.
Yeah. Jonathan's always getting hurt. She's always got to scream for him across the farm.
Jonathan. Yeah, whatever, woman. Back up. Jesus.
I was gonna say, you know about that.
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. All right. The next episode was The Invisible People. A large group of homeless people are living in front of a beach club on Florida Beach. They were promised jobs by a wealthy beach club owner who never gave them anything. This episode opens up with Lana, Clark, and TJ taking pictures of the homeless. And then there's a fire and someone's tent burns. And then Jania walks in and we talk while I try to pause it and take notes. And then TJ is hurt. And Damon was a CEO, but now he's homeless and he's tied up. Superboy pops in and uses heat vision on the guns and frees Lana and him. And Damon decides that if he doesn't press charges, maybe he can get the guy will give everyone the jobs they promised. And then and Superboy basically threatens that they can testify to him attempting to murder Damon and Lana, and that the other guys that were dressed as cops who work for the Manford can get plea deals. Manford agrees. Then we go back to the beach and Damon announces what's going on and that they'll all have living arrangements until the factory is open for their jobs. And then he just walks off as Clark steals a little girl's beach ball and plays beach ball.
Steals a little girl's beach ball.
And I put, why is Damon leaving? Because what happens is the guy doesn't follow through and he's not there. So he's just like the wandering, homeless, like man crusader for justice.
Yeah. Where was the Lonely Road playing when he was walking away?
But that's all my notes because I really missed part of it because I was talking with Jania about some important stuff.
Yeah, well, Allura was going a little crazy tonight, so I missed some of the bits as well.
So what's funny is, hold on, you mentioned Allura. We were talking and Sayla asked us a question, like, she said, what would my name have been if like, Daddy, you had just got to name me, not you and Mommy. And I said, well, I always had Feora picked out as a name. And Jania goes, great. We would have had a Laura and Feora just battling it out for all eternity. I was like, yep, probably.
That'd be fun.
But any other comments on this episode, Mr. Cole?
I mean, it was interesting in the beginning when it first shows up. I mean, the guy is a despicable bastard, throwing food out to the seagulls. They're having this like rich people party on this beachfront patio, literally with homeless on the other side of the fence. Like it was, it was pretty appalling, honestly. And the way the guy had his attitude, but Lana doing a study for her class, Clark and TJ as reporters, snapping pictures and like gonna write a story or ask questions, that type of stuff. But you got more of the details than I did through the middle of this episode, because I saw Damon get kidnapped and TJ get thrown into the van and knock it into drive and just kind of drives off as he's unconscious across the seats.
TJ. Okay, I will say this. At one point in my notes, I accidentally wrote Jimmy. I was like, oh, snap. I literally wrote Jimmy. I wonder why that is. TJ. But yeah, I was like,
TJ photographer.
TJ photographer. That's his full name.
Yeah. And Lana, this episode just kind of seemed like even though she was doing it for her report for class, she almost seemed like persistent, like a Lois Lane in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, this is Lana. And they keep saying like political science major.
Yeah. But
somehow Clark's always doing these investigations for the school paper that he just happens to, she gets roped into. I like how active this school paper is, but it's a college newspaper, so I'll buy it a little bit more than the Torch. Looking at you, Smallville. That's always one of the things about.
She did a lot of editions for a school newspaper.
Yeah, I will say that's always one of the things that like got me, because I remember our school newspaper literally was just like a news sheet document printed on like a piece of paper. Just regular paper.
Our school newspaper was like a newspaper. It was like folded in half, and you unfolded it in half, and then you flipped open a few sheets. But that's all it was. It was, maybe 2 folded, 3 folded tops together. But it was like a mini newspaper. But it was certainly not like the evening edition or like a new one every single week. It was or day. Yeah. How many issues is she like how much is their paper budget?
Yeah.
just for that.
Chloe,
how good is their printing press?
Yeah, it's been a week. You've already burned the entire budget you had all year for paper. What?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. It's like one issue a month or something like that.
Yeah,
or
that was the one thing
issue.
I just always felt like Chloe should have worked for like the local newspaper, instead of the school. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, let's keep going. All right, so now we're going to talk comics.
That's the world shrinking for the sets.
Yeah.
If they did a newsroom, she'd have people around her all the time.
No, I mean, not a small town, dude. I worked at a small town paper. There were 3 of us.
Oh,
so
well, there you go. You would know more than I do.
So let's talk about our comic for today. Our comic for today is we touched on this briefly, and we talked about this, the Justice League of America book that was done by Brian Hitch. And this is, we talked about this, it's JLA Power and Glory by Brian Hitch. This is a weird story. And I say that because this is technically New 52.
Yeah, in the New 52 canon.
But yet not. I mean, it's weird because there are instances in here where it references like his costume. Yeah, it looks like the New 52, but like the belt's a little different. Batman looks different. But yet Wonder Woman references being the god of war and everything in this. And this is, they call themselves the Justice. For some reason, it's called the Justice League of America, which in the New 52 was a project by the government. That's why it was of America, to make their own group of superheroes.
Yeah, Martian Manhunter was on it. Green Arrow was on it. I think Steve Trevor kind of headed it up.
Vibe was on it.
Vibe, yep. They have a book, and then they are primarily in the main canon. They're in the Forever Evil, at the beginning of the Forever Evil storyline,
because it's the buildup of Trinity War into Forever Evil. Yeah, but so that's just kind of weird that they're using the JLA, and then. This is where we brought this up because this is the story where Superman battles Rao. And we talked about how they mentioned that in the Last Days of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't talk about like the Doomsday virus or anything. And I just for fun, I read almost all of Action and Superman Rebirth. And the issue after Superman Reborn is probably one of the most interesting issues because it's one of those issues where it's basically him piecing together his history, and you see where it's been amalgamized, where there's little bits and pieces of the different stories are. But let's talk about this.
That's one I wanna read.
I see.
But yeah, I mean, as this book feeds into the final days, it's you can see that the interesting bit about like all the things that happen to him. Like what happens to him in this story is one of those things, but they only briefly touch upon it once in one panel.
So I guess we'll just talk about the book overall. Like, what did you think of the story?
Actually, I found it really good. I read right through the 10 issues. When I could, I read a couple issues at a time, and I just like each one, boom, 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 and I had a good time reading it. Getting to see it get pieced together in the end, it kind of it was well done because there's time travel involved.
Yeah, there's time travel and the stones and
yeah, it's definitely one of those highbrow type stories. 10 issue run. Yeah.
I liked it. I liked the concept of Rao coming to Earth, and you have this whole story of him talking about how he couldn't save his own planet. And you think he's a god, the god Rao, and like, the other gods on Olympus have disappeared, and because Wonder Woman goes to Olympus and it's destroyed. it's interesting. Let's just get into it. Okay. Let's get into this. So the first issue, the biggest part is at the end of the issue, Rao appears and basically states, I have come to save everybody. I am the great god Rao, and I have come to save you. And there's this red light in the sky, which is kind of interesting because red light, in the DC world, we always think crisis. So it's kind of interesting that, his red light is coming.
Right.
And like his giant ship. And
yeah, the Citadel.
Everyone's like, be at peace. I mean you no harm. Do not be afraid. And like Clark is drawn to him. But yet he makes Superman weak. And then basically Rao's people start converting and healing people. Aquaman doesn't put up with that stuff, as one of Rao's people comes to Atlantis trying to convert them. Of course, Batman doesn't care. Batman and Cyborg are trying to find anything they can find on Rao and who he is and what's really going on. And Superman's basically championing like, oh, trust Rao. He's great, blah, blah, blah. And we see them healing people all over. And then I said, like, the stuff stops where Wonder Woman goes to Olympus and it's destroyed and all the gods are missing. Then the Flash and Green Lantern get thrown to ancient Krypton.
Yeah, they're all fighting. The Justice League is fighting a parasite. Is fighting the parasite, and he's getting really powerful off of all of their powers and their attacks. And the Flash gets zoomed around the world and tells Superman to catch him, and he misses. And Hal is being sucked back to Oa because he's unresponsive to his ring because he's been drained by Parasite. And something with the portal and the Speed Force sent them back in time 250,000 years.
It's pretty crazy that they go back to ancient Krypton. But we have we have this setup of this Infinity Company that they have these stones and they have all these dead bodies of Superman because it keeps appearing at this one fixed point in time. And then we see more of Rao going around the globe healing the people in Africa and stuff and replenishing the lands with water and growth. And everything looks good, but of course Batman's skeptical. And now we have our team is all spread out, not only where they are, but through time also.
Yeah, through time and space, because Aquaman goes back to Atlantis, but Wonder Woman's on Olympus, which has been forsaken and destroyed, and left to her alone.
And we get Green Lantern who meets Rao in his original form when he's just a ruling prophet type person. And I don't want to jump straight to the end, but
yeah, they go to meet the back on Krypton. Hal meets a Rao as he was 250,000 years ago on Krypton, a war and raged planet where he ultimately brought peace to and a new age of, you know, like their scientific discovery. But what he did then was take life force willingly, you know, a few years off of a group of people,
Mm-hmm.
willingly giving life force to him for him to be younger, for him to live longer and be able to do the things that he's able to do.
And then, I mean, what we find out here is basically Rao's big thing is he needed a pure Kryptonian to help power him to continue his mission. And what he's doing is he's sucking the life energy out of people to power him to live forever and to do what he's doing. So people are getting
Yeah.
healed, but and everything, but he is going to steal their lives eventually.
Right. And he is only doing this on Earth, that we see early on, but we find out that he is across hundreds, if not thousands of planets out there, drawing life force off of people, and to a point where when he's back 250,000 years ago, he says, you know, as a whole, they live a few years less and I live a few years more. But like 250,000 years in the future, and he's got hundreds or whatever planets subjugated under him, feeding him life. He says it takes minutes off of their lives collectively,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, powers him indefinitely. Which they find out how that they find out how the people are connected to him through genetic modification.
Yep. And that's what they're doing when they heal them.
Yeah.
And if they're like the one guy, they give him defibrillation, like shock, and it snaps him out of it. And he gets disconnected from Rao.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, my thing is, I like this story, but I think it gets really convoluted a little bit when we get the stones that Rao's looking for, and then Rao travels back, and because these stones, this place is connected. Young Rao meets old Rao, and he sees what he becomes. Basically, I do like when Diana gives the weapons of the gods, giving Aquaman Poseidon's staff. I like that. And she takes the lightning bolt. You know, and Rao even says, like, I wish you could just have believed, Cal. And he tells Clark he'll never escape his planet prison. But then Clark's actually vibrating and actually flying the Citadel into the moon.
Yeah, that was really cool. It's like, I told you can't break free. It's like, I'm not. I'm flying. Flies the whole ship out.
And then he starts fighting Rao, and Rao basically starts beating him. Rao gets stabbed in the chest by Poseidon's thing, and he starts shooting them. But then what I like is when you have Aquaman, Superman, and Wonder Woman battling Rao, it goes back to 1 hour earlier when Batman's basically broadcasting with Cyborg on a frequency that only Superman can hear. And he's telling them what their plan is. And they basically use Parasite to absorb Rao's energy enough to weaken him. And then Superman grabs Rao and goes into the stones to basically electroshock them to separate Rao from his connection to everyone. And we pretty much think Clark is dead because Dinah says he's dead. And yeah, I'm getting there.
I mean, well, he does die.
Yeah.
She's given him like CPR for like 15 minutes before she decides to blast him with Zeus's lightning bolt.
And then Hal grows a beard on ancient Krypton while Barry battles Rao inside the cathedral. And we have Rao in ancient Krypton and in Earth, which they said the time displacement's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting how they show how they go back and forth, because these things are happening at like different times in Rao's life, but like in the current timeline of events of of the Justice League's lives.
Yeah, it is interesting because then we see that
because Rao, he says that all Kryptonians know Rao, like down to their like
DNA, yeah,
which is actually something that he did.
Yeah.
Is that he genetically modified Kryptonians to basically just be subservient.
To him, yeah,
Yeah,
that's why Clark kind of like fell and everything when Rao showed up is, and then we see that we get the line that Rao brings ancient Krypton to Earth, basically.
Yeah. Well, when he came, he knew about Superman because Flash told him in a previous part of the timeline.
Yep.
Like, so in Flash's timeline, he met Rao, but before anybody else met Rao, except for Hal.
And then we have the Justice League battling an army of Kryptonians. Then we get to Metropolis Park. And my favorite part is we have old Rao cut off the head of young Rao. Or wait, reverse that. Ancient Rao cut off the head of current Rao.
Yes, a future of modern day Rao.
He says, what? Superman yells, no, why? And Ancient Rao's like, somebody had to. Not just somebody. It had to be me. You murdered yourself. There are worse things than murder. Becoming him for one. Centuries of pain, conquest, and enslavement. This was my only hope for redemption. Okay. Yeah.
You know what? He came from Krypton. It was basically himself in the future. Like, you know what I mean? They do things differently.
Yeah.
Especially 250,000 years ago. I mean, he did what he had to do.
I mean, yeah. And my thing is, would it have worked if they pulled like a looper thing? What if he had stabbed like himself? You know,
that's what I kind of thought would happen.
Thus,
but also, I think Krypton needs to be put back in its place.
But I think it shows also that he is self-preserving it in his own way. So instead of just eliminating himself from the universe and seeing what he will do, he'd rather kill his older self with the idea that maybe he can do better as he ages.
Yeah.
It's a good story. It's a good book. But like some of these comics where it starts with a really strong, great premise, but then as they go, they get more convoluted. And you're just like, okay, all right, I understand this, I think. Okay, all right.
I think for the most part, I got it.
Yeah. I did too, but it's just like I kind of wish there's just been a little bit more about Superman, like Clark kind of losing his faith because of what he believed and realizing who his leader was. I didn't need the time travel elements. It would have been more interesting if it had been Clark just versus Rao and the idea of like this false god and what that meant.
The Infinity Corporation and that time travel, I think, was unnecessary, but the Green Lantern ring and the Speed Force, sending them back to ancient Krypton like that, I think that was cool. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But having to put in the Infinity Core to have more time travel, more bouncing around here and there. I'd have to think about it a little bit, but I think the Infinity Core time travel added some sort of messed
Confusion.
up element, confusion. I mean, I like seeing the character who has been around for the 250,000 years, and seeing him at different points in time. But I mean, you've got a time traveler in Barry.
Yep.
So
Oh, no,
he could have made some sort of time travel and seen Rao at another point.
I agree. But yeah, it's weird because this is one of those stories that I liked, but it has no bearing on anything else other than the mentions of it later. When it's like, oh yeah, you fought Rao, and it's kind of like if you were just reading the New 52 books, because this isn't even labeled New 52 on it or anything. Like, how all the New 52 books had the New 52 on it.
Yeah.
And the DCU and all that. Like, so you knew where it was. This didn't have that. It just felt like it was going to be a kind of side story and it really had no bearing on anything. There's no other characters other than the Justice League. There's no other and it doesn't connect with the continuity, but then it tries to. So it's a weird.
Yeah. There's some
story.
pretty sweet elements though. Some pretty cool stuff. I mean, Hal Jordan encompassing Krypton with his ring.
Yep.
With a shield around the planet. That was pretty awesome. The Flash doing what did the Flash do? But Aquaman with the Poseidon's trident, bringing up seahorses and tidal waves, and of course Diana with Zeus's lightning bolt. Them taking up these huge. I mean, they're the Justice League, right? But
Right.
taking up these massive, these ancient godly weapons to go into this fight, doing these large things like I said, putting a planet in a shield.
Well, that wraps up our episode for today and our reading. My problem is I get really excited to read these stories and then I read them, and then we don't get to record for a while, and then by the time we get around to recording, it's been like weeks since I've read them, and I'm like, crap.
Tyler dives right in. Like I try to space it, but get a little closer to the recording, so I'm a little more fresh on the story.
Yeah, James is smart.
The reading part I can hit when I need to. It's like watching and all that other stuff that has to be done ahead of
time. But I will say this, and then we'll close out. My prediction is that, and I could be wrong, that we'll get the Superman teaser next week.
Ooh. Yeah, because I mean, it's supposedly the 16th.
Because we heard rumbles that it might be attached to Mufasa, maybe Sonic. So we'll see. But that's it for the Krypton Report this week. Let us know, and remember.
Look up in the sky!
Thank you for joining us today on the Krypton Report. We ask you check out our social media. We have a YouTube where we do YouTube specials. You can check out our $1 Patreon, like we talked about, where we do specials. Check the QR code here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on X and all other social media.